Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today, we radiate light and hope with Kathleen Dayan, who is in Massachusetts, in Plymouth, in fact, with her family in Boston Terrier. She's a writer, a recovering lawyer, a business owner, animal lover, and spiritual seeker who writes novels about spirituality. And Kathleen's latest novel is Before We Were Born. So I am so happy to have you on the show. I really appreciate you making time to talk with me.
Oh, thank you, Christy. I love being here. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you. I love your Boston accent or your Massachusetts accent. I heard you on Coast to Coast with George Norrie talking about your book Before We Were Born. But let's back up before getting to that. So you're right up my alley. You're a medium, an animal lover, and all kinds of things. But how did you get to be on that path in the first place?
You know, it started with some losses in my life, honestly. I lost my sister when I was still in my 30s, and she was, we were really very, very close. I'm one of 5 girls, and we were all been very close. And she passed very quickly, unexpectedly. Oh. And that was, it shakes up your world, when you lose someone like that. And I had an experience after she passed, and I think it started to open something in me. She came to me in a dream. And it was about 3 or 4 months after she passed. And she came and she sat on my bed and she was holding my hand and we had a conversation and I could see us from all points in the room, but I could also see her face, like I was, having a face-to-face talk with her. And it was amazing and it was so comforting. And she had 2 people behind her. I couldn't see their faces. I could just see outlines and they had light around them. And we had a really nice conversation. And then she, when we were done talking, she got up to leave. And she let go of my hand and she went right out through the wall. And her friends behind her went out behind her. And it made me start to think about, once we've passed over, is there still a way to connect? And that was the first thing that started me on my path.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And then you started developing your gift and working with clients?
I don't have clients. I only work, my husband and I work together and we've just done it for our own spiritual growth. I will give people a reading if they're, if someone's in pain and I find, and I'm asked, to help them, I'll do that. It's a sacred thing to me. I've never taken money for doing any kind of mediumship, or it just feels to me like a privilege that I've been given. And I'm very private about it usually. And so now it's kind of out there in the world with this book. But until that, most people didn't even know that I was a medium. So this is new. This is, but I'm trying to just embrace that.
Yeah. Wow. And are you still a lawyer?
I'm still a lawyer. I still have my license, but I don't practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not good energy for me. Occasionally I'll have a friend call if they're having a problem. And if it's something I can, help with quickly, I will, or if I can get them in the right direction. But other than that, it's just not, it's not in alignment with the way that I want to live my life.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, especially when you're writing books like this, Before We Were Born, which is a novel mostly about reincarnation. Can you tell us about this novel? It's amazing.
Oh, sure. So what happened is it okay if I give you a little more background?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so how I got there is, so a few years after my sister passed, I had a friend of mine. We had been very close when we were younger, and we had not spoken to each other in about 20 years. And he called me. We had a conversation for about an hour. And 3 days after that, he passed away, and another unexpected death. And I I started getting the sense that he was in my house. And I will tell you, I was grieving his loss in a surprisingly deep way. I didn't expect it because we hadn't been in each other's lives for so long. And I realized we still had a connection between us. And I think that's one of the first things that I learned is that, love doesn't end. It changes, but it doesn't end. And so I started feeling him, and I knew he was around. I could tell you where he was standing in the house. I'd be like, I know he's here, and I would talk to my husband about it, and so we started going to a local spiritualist church, and they have mediums there, and so I was getting messages about him and about my sister. My mom had passed when I was younger, and I was getting all these great messages. And one night we went because they were having this thing called table tipping. And I had never heard of it. And we just thought, let's go. We'll check it out. And it's a form of physical mediumship. I don't know if you've experienced it, but so it's a way of communicating with spirit where there's a small group. There were 4 of us, and it's a very small table, maybe 20 inches wide, and it has a pedestal base. And everybody's sitting there with the intention of communicating with spirit. We sit and we put our hands on the table very lightly. And, when someone in spirit wants to come through, the table starts to move. It vibrates. And then, if it really picks up enough energy, it'll start to rock. Wow. And it is a wow moment. It really is. The table started rocking, and then it stabilized itself, and then it walked over to me and landed in my lap.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
Right. So what did that mean? Who was trying to connect?
It was my friend. And the way we found out is one of the people that was sitting at our table, one of the 4 of us, was the pastor in the church, and she's a medium, and she's just very talented and just lovely. And she helped with this whole thing. And she said, let's see if the person can tap out a message. And so they would, if you tap once, it's an A, and twice it's a B, and that kind of thing, just really simple like that. But he tapped out his name. And I had thought that's who he was, because I was grieving, and I felt that he was there to help me. And so after that really is what made me want to embark on this journey and understand what this is that mediums are doing and how they're connecting. And so, I did a whole lot of meditation because I think that's, the best way to open up your channel. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And so, after a lot of time, and this is really, it's a story that goes over a number of years, because it started off with me being able to, I could feel spirit touching my skin. It feels like a spider web on your skin. Yeah. So that was the first thing I felt. And then I felt my third eye opening. My third eye would burn. Yeah. And, so it was various things like this. And then eventually, when my third eye opened, I started seeing spirit lights in my home, and I could see auras. And so all these new things were happening. It was all really very exciting. And, like I said, my husband did all this with me. So we were kind of on our own, just, finding out all these new interesting things. And eventually I began to channel spirit. And so there was so many messages that were coming through that changed the way we saw ourselves and our lives. And I was still practicing law, during the day, and, table tipping and channeling at night. And it's quite a contrast. But it was something that we were both really passionate about. And so I'm the channel, and he serves as like a grounding force. So it's easier for me to communicate when he's with me, and and that's how we usually do it. But he would write things down, and there's notebooks filled with things that we were told. And eventually I said, we were communicating to someone in spirit, and I said, I want to write about this. And I really don't want to write this as a nonfiction story. I'm a writer. Like I write fiction. I like stories. I've always loved stories. And they said, do anything you want with it. It doesn't matter, whatever you want. But some of the things they talked to us about was the idea that we had lived before. And I found out about some of those lives, and the fact that, we all reincarnate. There are many, many lifetimes, and there are connections that continue throughout lifetimes. And it was just mind blowing, really, all of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Spirit just kind of gave you the idea for this novel.
Yeah, they really did. That's the bones of the novel. So that's the way I like to put it, is because those concepts came from them. I didn't have to create that from my imagination, but I wanted to fit a story into those concepts. And so I created a story where these two people incarnate together over and over throughout lifetimes.
Yeah.
And the opening chapter is actually these two people in spirit and communicating amongst themselves and with their spirit guides and friends, and about incarnating again. And, one of them really wanted to be born again because her mom from a different life was going to have another baby, and she wanted the experience of being here, being in the physical and having that same mom. And her partner didn't want to, but he follows her anyway. And he chooses someone just because the mother is nearby where his soulmate is being born. And he chooses this woman, and she's not the best choice. At least it seems that way for a very long time in the story. Her character does grow, but she is an alcoholic and a drug addict. And this little boy is born to her, and he has fetal alcohol syndrome. He's born 3 months early. He just kind of has a really rough start in life.
Right.
But these two kids find each other right away, and he's like this tiny little thing, and he squeezes underneath the fence. He sees her playing, and they just are bonded from the start. So the story is really about what happens in their lives, and this strong soulmate connection that they have, but also being in this very real physical world and all the challenges it presents. And so it's not an easy path for them. This isn't a romance because it doesn't follow that kind of formula. It's a tough read in some parts, but
interesting.
Yeah.
So this notion of soulmate, I've heard so many different ways to put it. I have, ways that I define it as well. How do you define it in this novel?
Well, these two have a very special kind of connection. And I don't know that it's ever really defined, but I wanted it to be, they do have a romantic connection. That's who they are. And they, when they're in spirit, they say that they're inseparable, he is reminding her, he says, not on earth. We don't have, it's not necessarily true, and so that's why he picked someone close to her. But to me, apart from the novel, I think of a soulmate as someone that I travel with, and I don't think there's just one. I think there are many,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Okay. People that
And
we. Mhm.
we travel with. It's kind of like here, if you're going to go on you're going to go to Europe or something on a big trip, who are you going to pick? It's going to be the people that you love the most, that you want to have that adventure with. And I think of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they have and so in this novel, they've got a mission, a job that they're going to do, or at least something that they want to attempt together. Right.
Yes.
Yes. And you also based some of this on reincarnation research. Can you talk a bit about like what went into the planning of this novel?
I did look into a lot of stories,
Yeah.
about reincarnation. It's really fascinating. I hope I have this name right. I don't have the notes in front of me. James Leninger, I believe his name was, this young boy. When he was about 2 years old, he started talking about being a World War II fighter pilot. I don't know if you've heard the story, but it's really fascinating. And he talked about his plane going down over the Pacific and him being stuck in the plane. And he's telling his parents this when he's 2 years old. And he started telling them, the type of airplane he was in. And he said he named he said that his plane had taken off from a boat, not from land. And he named it. It was called the Natoma, I believe. And they tracked all this. And he told them the name of his best friend. And so it was really, really, to me, it's just inarguable that this boy had this experience. He couldn't have come up with this.
Yeah, that's intense. Yeah, where'd you hear about that story?
I've heard it a few different times, but if you look it up, it's under, I believe it. I know his first name is James, and it was the same name in the life before that. He's got quite a lot of press, so you'll find it.
Yeah, I just found it. James Leninger.
I think that's definitely the one. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. And his book was Soul Survivor, the reincarnation of a World War II fighter pilot. So you had pulled some of that information into this book. Did you look at any other well-known cases? Like how did you get all of the information to put into this fictionalized account?
I got it all from spirit, honestly. Even the case that we're just discussing, the James Leninger, I read these things. It's confirmation for me because, being a medium, I'd like to hear the words come from someone else's mouth. It sounds silly, I guess, but it does feel that way. I've been given so much information about, I have an Indian guide, and there's a whole, group of Native Americans that are family from past lives. They come through and they talk to me. And I had a medium come to me once, and she said, "You have a lot of Native Americans standing around you." And I said, "I know, but I'm so glad you told me," because it was just so reassuring to hear it from somebody else who could see, what I'm not very good at clairvoyance. It comes like once in a while I'll get a glimpse of something, but for the most part, I'm not great at that. So when somebody sees it, it's really like meaningful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I understand that this book came from spirit, the idea, the concept, the whisperings, all of it came from spirit. But why did you feel that you needed to write it down? What kind of nudges were you getting?
So first of all, they were so open about it. Like the people I spoke to in spirit were like, "Do whatever you want with it. This is not like, there wasn't any kind of like agenda or anything like that. It was me saying, I want to do this." And when I first wrote it, I wrote it as a screenplay.
Oh,
And,
that's fun.
Yeah, because I thought it would be, I just see it as a visual story. So, hopefully one day I'll get to that point with it. But after I did that, I novelized it. And part of why I wanted to get this out is because it gave me so much comfort to have this information. And, the same with my husband and my family and friends that I have shared this with, that have experienced it with me, the channeling and that kind of thing. It changes your perception of death, and it makes you less afraid.
Yeah.
And, that's a big one. And then also just knowing that so now that I know, like my dad has since passed, my mom and dad and my sister are on the spirit side of life. It doesn't make it easier that I can't see them. They're not at our parties anymore, all of that, but it makes me feel so much better because I know that they're still there. They're living life in a different way than I am now. But it really took that big block of grief off of my chest. And I want other people to feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my dad December 1st last year.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
2 months ago. Thank you. Yeah, it's been really tough. And, I know these things. I'm a medium as well. I'm a spiritual. That's my livelihood. But still, it's hard. And we just want to have some sort of confirmation about our loved ones, how they're doing. Do they make it okay? Is everything going okay? Are they still connected? We just want to know.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
It's very strange to be disconnected, when they pass, and used to being able to, pick up the phone and, or drive over, or, it's just a very strange, I think losing parents, it's a very strange thing because you rely so heavily on them, and they're gone. It's like, it's like a rude awakening that you can't do that anymore.
Right. I said, I'm 58 years old. I'm still being parented. And it's hard. It's really hard. And then I also do quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is a form of past life regression, but and then some. And so whenever possible, we go to the client's death scene in their other lives. Just to find out how and what that was like. And when they see that dying is easy, I've done it lots of times. It takes the mystery out of it.
Yeah, that's another thing that takes that big block off your chest, because if you can give that to people, that's an amazing gift.
Right. They don't have to fear it anymore. And it's not hard. Yeah. Right. Yeah. In fact, Dolores Cannon, who developed the QHHT method, she wrote a book, Between Death and Life. And in that book, it talks about, dying is easy. It's like going from this room and going to that room.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think books like yours also give us that kind of hope, and that just that confirmation of how easy things are. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah. So this is a very, I feel like it's a timely book. So many people are waking up to this idea of soul family, of reincarnation, of soul path, of soul mates. What are your hopes for this book? Like, who do you hope is going to take something away from it?
Oh, well, I hope it resonates as something that they almost remember, because as I was learning these spiritual truths, as they were being passed to me, I felt like, oh yeah, like I almost like it's a remembrance, it's a recollection. They were telling me things that I already knew because my soul knows. We come forth here with our, it's the soul carries all the information. So we have it with us. But as we're going through life and it's all subdued and you don't remember all those things. But sometimes you'll read something and it will make you, go, that's right. It seems to resonate because something in you recognizes it.
Yes. You just say, oh, that's a truth that, that sounds right. It sounds right. Wow. No, and you're getting rave reviews. I'm looking at some of the great quotes you have. Have you been doing a lot of interviews around this book?
I have been, yes. So yeah, this part is new to me, because writing has always been so solitary.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know, but I
solid.
like it's fun though to be able to talk about my book.
Yeah, that is fun. And of course, you're with John Hunt Publishing, right?
Yes.
In the UK, yeah, the fabulous John Hunt Publishing. They do such great work. And this is your first novel, from what I understand.
This is my first with a publisher. I had self-published another novel that's about alcoholism. Yeah, that's something I put out a number of years ago.
Hi there. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you about a very special event that we have coming up with Radiate Wellness. This is the Inner Journey, Discovering Your Soul's Path 3-day spiritual and metaphysical retreat. This is an immersive experience, March 31st to April 2nd. So it's all inclusive. So that's lodging, meals, snacks, and wonderful workshops. So what are the workshops that we have coming up? First, we're going to be doing a sound healing concert with Susan Walter, who's a visionary angel artist and angel communicator who paints beautiful angel portraits. And she'll be leading us in a sound healing concert with crystal bowls, and there will be energy work alongside that sound healing. We're going to be doing a group QHHT session, that is quantum healing hypnosis technique, with me, Christy, and we will visit one past life and one potential future life, just to look at the arc of your soul and your soul's purpose. We will also be connecting to your inner self and your intentions for 2023. We'll be doing energy workshops and energy healing workshops. And we will do a meditation to meet your angel or angels and learn how to work with them. We will also have a special guest from Switzerland, from Geneva, Switzerland. Mary Jane Stodeman will be joining us to talk about your soul's journey with astrology. So our leaders for this retreat are myself, Christy Clemens Hoffman, Kathy Lesmeister, who's another one of our wonderful practitioners with Radiate Wellness, Susan Walter, who is a Kansas City-based visionary artist and sound bowl enthusiast, as well as Mary Jane Stodeman, tarot master and astrology teacher in Switzerland. So all of these events are all covered under one price. And there is an early bird special. You can save $100 on this retreat until January 31st, 2023. And then regular registration continues afterward. And again, that will be a $100 discount up until January 31st. You can find out more information and register at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. It's right at the top of the homepage. Hope to see you there. Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You, as in the letter U, but also, well, you.
There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
Yeah. So this seems to be a theme. Why did you choose to have a character in your recent novel with fetal alcohol syndrome?
Well, I wanted to talk about the things that get in the way in life. For me, so I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I got sober when I was 26. And I was a really sick young person, like a teenager in my early 20s. I was really very, very sick with alcoholism. And I actually had a doctor, the person who 12-stepped me, said to me, if you don't get sober, you're not going to see 27. And it was that severe. And, I had to really change my life. And once that started to happen, once I started to find my own feet, I noticed that I started having, along with, being able to navigate my life better without all the noise, I started having like little glimpses, like through dreams, different things would come through. That's actually the first past life thing I had, was I was having little quick dreams of a past life. But I think that it just really clogs up the channel. And, you'll in before we were born, Jeremy's mom is an alcoholic. And she's a mess, and I was a mess. So it's not with judgment that I say that, it's just, it can get you to that place. And it's a really ugly, terrible place to be, honestly. And but she turns it around in the end, But Jeremy also was plagued with alcoholism. And one of the things I learned from doing research is that fetal alcohol, children who are born with fetal alcohol syndrome are more likely to be alcoholics. And I think it's just having that dependence when they're born. So I want to talk about that and how that really throws his life off. And he's really a very unusually perceptive person. And when he's drinking, he that gets shut down. And so he's not able to communicate with his guides. But as a little boy, he's communicating with his guides, and he's like this really interesting little guy. He's very, very wise. He's not school smart. He doesn't do well, academically. He gets held back, that kind of thing. And Joy, his little soulmate, she doesn't understand it. The other kids are making fun of him, and saying he's stupid. And she's like, he's not. She's like, he knows way more than you do. Like, she can't understand. She knows that she says he's just smart in a different way,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I had a student with fetal alcohol syndrome when I was teaching college, and it was amazing that she even made it to college. But, a delightful girl, but had some challenges, some obvious challenges, and physical issues as well, physical features and things like that. So it's a heavy thing to carry around, I think. Interesting choice for one of two main characters in a novel. Mm-hmm. And then what about Joy? Do you have any basis for her character?
There is a little bit of myself in her, I guess, although she certainly isn't meant to be me. But sometimes, I guess, looking back after I learned to communicate and feel like, I have a little bit better understanding of myself now, and I can look back on my younger years and I can see there were times that I just sort of, blindly went in a certain direction, without knowing what I thought I knew. There's points where she just loses patience with him, and she doesn't know that he has fetal alcohol syndrome. She knows that he struggles in school, but she doesn't find out until really towards the end of the novel. And she's just shaken by it. She can't believe that she realizes that she pushed him. She says, why would I have done this to him? I must have made life so hard for him. And because she just didn't have that full understanding.
Right. Oh, so this novel has so much more to it than just a simple story of reincarnation. I mean, there's development and growth. There's real intricacy in the characters. That's interesting. How did you start writing? This takes some craft. So how do you think you approached it?
Honestly, because I wrote it as a screenplay first, it was a little bit easier because it broke it down by scenes. So, you know what I mean? And so when you write a screenplay, there's not a whole lot of words. Every page is more white than it is ink, and there's about 100 pages. So if you think of that compared to this novel that is, I don't remember exactly, but say 350 pages or something like that, a whole lot more goes into the novel, but you have to be able to say things with just dialogue. You have to show character with dialogue and with action, and that's really all you can do, So it was really like this wonderful experience to make it into a novel and be able to dig in deeper. But the screenplay gave me the outline for it.
That's an interesting approach to make it a screenplay first. Had you ever written a screenplay before?
No, I taught myself how to do it. And, I entered some competitions. I did pretty well and just, got some encouragement. And I had people say to me, you need to find someone to produce this film. And I was never able to get anybody to look at it, anybody in the industry. Who knows? Maybe someday, I'd love that. It's a dream.
Right. If you were to cast this movie, have you thought even that far ahead?
I used to think the perfect person for Jeremy would be Josh Hartnett.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved Kate Hudson for Joy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that'd be great. What a good combination there. And then in the novel, do they find out that they are reincarnated soulmates?
They kind of tap into that when they're kids. They're both having dreams about this. So when they come, they have two guides who promise to stay with them, and they're Indian guides, they're Native American men, and they can talk to them in their dreams. And so they're seeing them. They start talking. They realize that they both have these dreams, and Jeremy's much more tapped in than Joy. So he'll tell her the stories, and he'll tell her sometimes, he'll remember things about this Native American life, and he'll, tell her things. She'll say, well, tell me more about, even when they're teenagers, she'll say, do you remember you used to tell me about the Indians? And he's like, yeah. And she'd say, and you dream about them? And he's like, do you not dream about them anymore? And she said, well, no. And then she thinks they've sort of abandoned her, but it really is just that she's sort of shut it off. And so he tells her what they're telling him. And so there's almost a continuity to this, to the connection to spirit. Jeremy, starts drinking and as a young man, and he cuts off that channel. And, it sets them askew. So suddenly there's like this, there's a break between them because of all that. And then they're trying to find their way back to each other. And the story focuses a lot on Joy's growth, on her character really has to be like, she goes from, 0 to 100. She just doesn't understand so many things. And then as time is passing, she ends up able to tap into spirit too. But later in life, when she's like, she has to really like work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is very common for people. We can shut it off. We can grow out of it. We can become disconnected and find our way back. So Let's get a little philosophical here. What do you think causes that separation for us?
From spirit?
Yeah, that disconnection from spirit.
Well, I think it can be a lot of things. Just, day to day, how you're feeling. Like one of the things for me is I know I never try to communicate unless I'm in a good headspace, because it's not going to be a good communication. It just isn't. I'm not going to get it clearly. I'm not going to understand, and I'm going to get frustrated. And I really need to bring peace to the table.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to that kind of, because it's an exchange, it's like you have to kind of bring your best too. And, so that can shut it down. Anger is a big one.
Right. That's a big one. And then finding your way back to it, rekindling that connection. How do you think that starts?
I think you have to realize that you've gone off track a bit, and then get quiet with it. For me, it's getting quiet with, I'll have to sit and I'll, in meditation. Or a big thing for me is living, near the ocean. I spend a lot of time down there, and there's certain places that just remind me, of just the eternalness in the eternity, by watching, the ocean and the birds and everything there, that they make me feel connected. And sometimes you have to work at that connection. Sometimes, like for me, it's, if it's freezing cold like it is today, looking out the window and acknowledging still, my God, it's beautiful, and thank you so much. I have to say thank you, every day, so many times. I just, to me, it's the Great Spirit, our Creator has provided absolutely everything for us, and in the most beautiful form imaginable. These life forms around us, the animals, and that's why I mentioned being an animal lover. I see God in those animals, and I just, my spirituality is I try to follow this Ahimsa, it's called, and it means non-injury, to all living beings, including myself. And I love that, because I also have to remember that I'm a self-destructive person. I nearly took myself off the earth, by my own actions against myself. So I have it. I actually have this tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you can see it, but it's, I don't know how well you can see there, but and it says Ahimsa right here on my wrist, because I think of that as my vulnerable spot on my body. And it's like, I need that there. That's my reminder. You have to non-injury to me as well as to everyone else.
I think we take that piece not for granted, but we just don't think of that piece. We think of non-harm for everybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, but then we treat our bodies like crap.
Yeah.
Into our bodies, thoughts into our bodies, emotions into our bodies that really are not in our highest and best good.
Yeah, you're right.
Amazing. Yeah. Ahimsa. That's a beautiful word. So what
word, yeah.
Come from? Is it Sanskrit or something?
I know it's ancient Indian. It's what I just think of it as my spirituality. It's a concept of, a way of living, just by seeing everything as sacred.
Right. Yeah. Love that. So what does your spiritual practice look like these days?
Primarily, I don't, first of all, I don't eat animals. I don't use animals in any way. Like I don't wear leather, or I try to be thoughtful about these things. I keep learning things about myself and realizing I don't think that, I don't want my life to cause somebody else to suffer, whoever that other being is. And so it's an ever evolving thing, and that's, I've learned recently, like, wool is not a good thing, for animals. And I didn't know that. So I'm not going to throw all my clothes out that I have, but I'm like, okay, I'll make a different choice next time, just as an example. But so that's kind of the way I live. But I meditate, I pray every day. I started praying when I got sober, and I haven't stopped, because it's coming to that understanding that you're asking someone else for help, and that someone else is, they say in AA, something, is greater than yourself. It doesn't have to be God, but to me, it's that great spirit that's like provided this amazing life for me, and I just have to stay grateful. If I lose my gratitude, I'm in trouble. And it's in a lot of ways. I mean, I think we can lose what we have if we don't appreciate it.
We can. This is so true. Yeah. And I have to say, good for you for your recovery. That takes so much work, so much dedication, so much courage. That is, that's remarkable and commendable. So good job on that.
Well, thank you very much. Again, it's like, I feel like that's something that for me is just, it's so much relying on that higher power. It really is. It's more that than anything else. I mean, make smart choices. Like I don't do, go out partying with people, go around when people are going to be, things like that. But for the most part, it's just, the prayer and meditation and gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gratitude is really everything, and it teaches us that there's something always to be grateful for, and nothing can be taken for granted, because everything comes from elsewhere and from our thoughts. So yeah. Do you have any other books in the works?
I do, actually. Well, I have another book that's going to be published in October. It's already with John Hunt.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so that one is called Bridge Jumping, and it's about, so it opens up at this young woman's funeral. She's 40 years old and she's passed. Oh. And, she's still very present in the book because we have her journal entries. But the way I set it up is it's about, she has her body cremated into 12 vials of ashes. And she wants the people who are closest to her to take those ashes to a place that's meaningful to the relationship that she had with them. And so she wants all these people to have a chance to do that instead of just leaving the box to her family. And the book, the main idea was to follow each one of those vial of ashes to where that person would go and why they went there. And then in between, I have the woman's name is Paige, and I have her journal entries. And as we're reading this book, we're realizing like she's very much alive. She's the most vibrant person in the book. And she comes to a point where, she is diagnosed with liver cancer and she doesn't have a very long time to live, but she stays vibrant to the best of her ability. It gets a little dark, but every person who takes that vial has a little bit of a different spiritual slant. And I wanted to talk about that for a couple of reasons, because to see how that how did that influence where they went with those ashes? And also, if everybody has a little bit of a different slant, like where is the common ground? Is there common ground with everybody? Because the way I see the world right now is like there's so much conflict, and particularly with between different religions and I think so much of it is just lack of understanding, that we don't see how much we actually do see things the same. We don't express everything, and so we can't see people's minds and their thoughts. And so, I wanted to talk about perception and how we're seeing each other, and then give that person a chance to talk about, no, this is who I really am. And just to find a way to, converge, these different spiritual paths.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I really like that. I'll have to have you back on to talk about that bit because I think it would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
So, very creative mind for a lawyer. I have to say, very creative and open mind for a lawyer. So, have you always been this creative and interested in storytelling?
Yes, I have, and thank you. I appreciate that. I was an English major in college, and that's just you too.
Well, for my master's, I was a theater major for my undergrad, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome too. You're creative too, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't written a novel yet.
Well, I'm sure you will. Sounds like you've got it in you.
Mm-hmm.
But the theater stuff is so cool. I just think that's an amazingly, creative way to express.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, you were a theater major and, have you written short stories, poems, that type of thing before this?
Yeah, I have. So, before I went to law school, so I was a single mom for a little while with my first daughter. And, it was the two of us, and I was like sending off short stories. I had a little job in a bookstore, and I was sending off my short stories and my poems. And I got a bunch of rejections, and I got a few things published. And but it was, I'd make like, $200 was, I think, is the most I made on a story. And that was back in the 90s. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to raise this kid on this. I can't, this isn't going to cut it, So I went to law school, and I always felt like this is something I could do. I'm interested in it. I was never as interested in it as I was in writing, but it does captivate me. There are lots of parts of the law that are very interesting.
Yeah, I just recently had Marina Bruni. I'm not sure if you know about her, but she's an international lawyer and a Reiki master. And
wow.
She approaches the law in a very spiritual, holistic way. Absolutely fascinating. So she'll be on, we've already recorded, so it'll be on a few weeks before your episode. But yeah, really good conversation with her and taking the light and applying it to law, which was interesting.
And it's necessary. This has somewhere along the line, this has to change, you know?
Right.
And I think that's so cool. I'll listen to that episode. She sounds wonderful.
Oh, she's delightful. Absolutely delightful. And lawyers just get a bad name. They're like a joke. My dad used to tell all kinds of lawyer jokes.
Sure.
But, it's very necessary. We need to have laws. We need to be sure that we're adhering to laws, that we allow ourselves to be, to live our life according to some sort of higher principle. I mean, so it is important. So,
yeah.
What you were doing there with the law it was essential and helpful.
It is, but what you were saying about your guest that's going to be on, the idea of softening it and looking at it from a more healing viewpoint, I think that's where we need to go. I mean, to me, that's evolution.
Yes, that's evolution. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, maybe you could work that into one of your novels.
You never know. You never know when stuff comes out.
Stuff comes out. Well, definitely when your new book comes out, I want to talk to you about it because that sounds wonderful, and taking the spiritual path and fictionalizing it. I think there's a lot of power in storytelling.
See, that's what I think too. People ask me all the time, well, why did you write it as a novel, as a fictional story? And I always say, I think it resonates more with people. We can relate to it instead of somebody, just saying this is what the truth is, or this is what I learned. It's just harder to digest than a story.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and you can take these spiritual principles, these spiritual truths, and apply them to a life. Yes, you're creating that life in your work, but you can, have this physical application or this spiritual application to it.
Yes. Yeah, it's fun too. It's really fun to do it.
Oh, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you think is important to know? Anything else that's important to mention about your book, your work, or anything that you do?
You really covered so much. I can't think of anything really, but it's been really fun. I appreciate you doing this, Christy.
Oh, this has been so much fun. And your website again is Kathleen Ready Dayan. That's spelled DAYAN.com. It'll be in the show notes. But
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to go and check out this book. It's just a lot of fun. I think it's going to be an important book. Thank you so much for sitting down to talk with me.
Thank you so much, Christy.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.